Evening.
I am early.
Well, I'll probably start coming in around 10 minutes late.
No, everybody starts coming in half an hour late. They were like, oh. We're going to give it a couple minutes, let people float in. Please click the like button as you're coming in.
Alaska. Got a Norwegian. Chicago.
Yep, he's got to do his Rain Man routine.
Oh, yeah.
It's standard. He please go ahead and get
North
it out of
Carolina,
the way.
freaking hot.
Plug in where you're from.
This is the 7th ring of hell here. 100, 103.
7th ring of hell, Jesus.
This is brutal. This last couple of weeks here has been brutal.
The silence is deafening.
Yes, it is.
Well, I thought you would be, doing the Rain Man. Watch,
I'll
start talking.
We got in Wisconsin here.
See? As soon as I start talking.
Long Island. It's pretty cool. I actually met somebody here from Long Island last week. It was actually an Italian restaurant, some Italian restaurant here. And he was talking about being here and here in Texas, and then being from Long Island. He's actually anxious to go back to Long Island. You can't take the heat.
You know what they say? Can't take the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of the kitchen. All right, that was done. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. If you have a question tonight, just go ahead and put it into the chat line. If you would like to get priority over all the other questions that are coming in, or just simply want to make a donation to the channel, you can do that by using the super chat function with the $, and your question will get bumped over everyone's. Google does take 30%, which is quite a bit. So our preferred method is Dinnerbox, because they only take about 3% instead of 30%. There's links for that on our website, Small Arm Solutions. But I'm also I'm pulling it right now for you guys. It's in the chat now. You can use that throughout the chat if you would. It's the same. It'll be the same thing. It just I'll get an email and I'll stop pulling questions and take those priority over everybody else's that are coming in. But we don't just take paid questions. We try to get through as many as possible, as quickly as possible. So let's see. We're going to kick it off with Steve on Dinnerbox. Thank you, Steve. Chris, do you have any experience running subsonic 308 ammunition through a large frame or platform rifle? Any quirks that we should be aware of?
Actually, I do. The subsonic ammunition that I have had for 308 does not cycle in any of the semi-automatic rifles that I've had. I think it's relatively difficult to find a good one that works. In fact, the only subsonic ammunition I've had that really works was the Black Hills 77 grain subsonic. That's about the only one I've ever had that works. Everything else, even the AK mission I had, it was subsonic. The stuff was all cycling manually. So to be honest, most of the ones I've come across, you're cycling it manually.
Adnan on Dinnerbox. Thank you, Adnan. Do you have any plans to look into or review complete upper receivers or their barrels made by Roscoe Manufacturing?
Not really, because I've reviewed guns that have them all the time. A lot of the Colt rifles I've had in the past I've done had Roscoe barrels on them. they're a good barrel. They're not anything noteworthy. They make a good military grade barrel. Colt's trusted them for several years making barrels for them. So I mean, there's certainly nothing bad I can say about them. They do good military grade barrels.
Sean on Dinnerbox. Thank you, Sean. He just left a donation. He didn't have a question. Kirk on Dinnerbox. Thank you, Kirk. He was near Centurion Arms the other day, and he said it looked like it was very busy, and he wanted to know if there was any word on the Mark 11 complete rifle.
You know what? I just talked to Monty yesterday. He's been out of the country. This guy here is producing as much as he possibly can in house. He still has difficulty getting barrels because of him being a smaller company. I think this guy would do anything you ask him to if it's within his ability. He's been trying to get his 308s off the ground for a long time. He's now making bolts and bolt carriers in house. The ones that you're seeing are not ones that are made by anybody else. They're actually made by him in house. As far as his plans on introducing any newer guns, you certainly would have to ask him. But this man's working on stuff all the time.
Justin on Dinnerbox. Thank you, Justin. Who makes best quality new 6-hole carbine handguard for Colt retro build?
You know what? I'm using Colt handguards. I would be going on Gunbroker or on any place trying to find original Colt parts. The handguards that you're seeing now are not the quality of the Colt, especially the carbine handguards. The carbine handguards now, you put them in your hands, you can actually squish them. That's how flimsy they are. But the Colt ones, you can jump on them and do anything. They're not going to move. I'm a purist. If I'm going to do a Colt retro, I'm going to find Colt parts.
Okay, I'm scrolling to the top. How would you go about installing an arms folding gas block on a barrel with no gas port, blowback? It's 16 inches, and I want to use a mid-length drop-in so the bayonet lug is functional.
Well, obviously you have to have a barrel that's mid-length for a 9mm. Quite frankly, I've never seen one of those. Pretty much everything I've seen is set up for a carbine-like gas system. As far as the barrels, the way the gas blocks go on, but for as far as the gas block itself, the arms folding sight base, you just got to make sure that it's straight. You just got to make sure that it's not canted. Gas tube usually help you out a little bit with that, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's not canted. So I actually have a tool that I've had for years so that basically you put a detachable carrying handle on top of the rifle, and there's a long bar that goes about like this, and it sits right in between the two rabbit ears on the front sight base. And it actually centers it all up so you can just torque it right down, which is the way that I've done it for many, many years.
Least Gassy semi-auto rifles when suppressed.
External piston. But again, you're always going to get gas back there because when that bolt opens up, gas is going to come out the back. Of course, external pistons, because it's not going back into the bolt, you will get less. But you're still overall going to get gas. If you don't want that, you're best trying to get one of these reverse flow suppressors like the OSS or like LMTs or a new LMT advanced technology Orion or one of the new silencer co reverse flow. That's going to be your best bet to reduce your gas.
Looking to build a Colt 733 retro, what brand lower would be the best?
733, I think that's a C7, but let me double check. 733 or 723?
733.
Well, 733, that's just a standard A2. Maybe a standard A2 lower. I mean, Colt 6920 or CR6920. Pretty much any standard M16 A2 type lower receiver would work on that. You just got to try to find the older polymer telescopic stock, type 2.
Any plans to review the Heron X16?
Not yet. I have not actually really looked into that one yet.
Thoughts on Delton?
Don't really have any. Delton is one of the older. It's an older company. They've manufactured more of the lower end budget type rifles. I've never heard anything bad about them. There was a time when I tried to get one for review. I was doing a budget AR-15 video. I did a 2-part series years ago. I contacted them about trying to get my hands on one of them to do a review. They never returned my phone call, so I've never had the opportunity to actually get one of them in my hands. But based off of what I know about them, they're like a PSA or something along those lines, where they cater to the lower end.
Is there any way of preventing firing pin retaining pin from getting bent? I know the bolt tail seal is insufficient.
Most of the time when those get bent, it's due to the fact that you're using the wrong firing pin. Most of the time when you see bent firing pins, they were in the original Colt AR-15s. What would happen is the hammer, for the semi-automatic only, you would have a little notch that's cut in the hammer. And with that notch, you have to have the small head AR-15 firing pin. If you were to use an M16 firing pin instead of a AR-15, which is got a larger head on it, that head would catch on that notch on that hammer, and that's what would cause that firing pin, retaining pin to bend. Normally, unless you don't have that, it's not usually a problem. Most of the time, if they're bent now, it's because you're installing them and you're bending them as you're installing them. So really, it's either add the right firing pin or be a lot more careful when you install your retainer pin so you don't bend it. Because when you're twisting it, a lot of times you can bend those things up pretty good.
Did we do this one?
Which one?
This one?
No.
Okay. What's the benefits of a Colt Socom barrel versus the M4 barrel profile?
Oh, certainly quite a bit. First off, for extended fire, it delays your cook-off. Heavy barrels are always more accurate. For as far as heat dissipation, they're much better. Some of these things you would never see unless you're firing fully automatic. But if you want to know more of the oomph of what those barrels do, if you were to do a destruction test on those two barrels, which I can tell you exactly when those will fail. If you were to do a continuous destruction test where you're firing just as fast as you can replace magazines, you get about 400 to 450 rounds out of a M4 profile barrel before it will fail, before you have a failure, structural failure behind the gas block. A Socom barrel will go over 900 rounds, and it's generally going to be a bolt that's going to fail. So for as far as your longevity, that shows you that you're looking at damn near double the life of that. Of course, the heavy barrel with a if you have a free flow on it, you're going to get more accuracy just because of the harmonics. If you're just doing light stuff, where you're not doing a lot of rapid fire or full auto, you're probably wasting your money on the Socom barrel. If you're looking for more of a combat barrel that's not going to overheat with extensive use, then the Socom barrel is going to be a much better option for you. Seth
on Dinnerbox. Thank you, Seth. What's your opinion on the PWS Mark 116 Pro for a SHTF rifle? Also, is the PWS buffer tube a requirement for that buffer?
Actually, I just did a video on that over the last couple of weeks when it just came out on the Pro. No, you can put it on any lower receiver. You just want to make sure you put an H2 buffer in it. Excellent system, certainly a good shit hits the fan gun. No problem with it whatsoever. It's beautiful recoil, accurate, being able to adjust the gas down. So if you're using suppressors, or being able to adjust it down if you're using NATO ammunition, or adjusting it with a larger port so you can fire some of the crap ammunition. It is an excellent rifle. I would encourage you to go watch that video. Again, it's one of the more recent videos. We did two on PWS. One was a 308 and one was a 5.56 Pro.
If the U.S. is so dead set on replacing the M4, do you think the Spear LT would be a good replacement?
Oh, absolutely. Am I in favor of replacing the M4 at this point? No. If we were going to actually change to a different caliber, the caliber, which in my opinion would have been better, would be going to the 6.8 SBC. You'd be getting some of the benefits of the 6mm cartridge, 6.8 cartridge, but you wouldn't be losing your ability to have a 30-round magazine. You wouldn't be losing your ability to be able to have controllable suppressive fire. You wouldn't be getting any of the negative aspects of this new 6.8 by 51. The 6.8 SBC, you would still be having an assault rifle rather than a full power battle rifle. So, for as far as 6.8 was concerned, I think the Spear Light would have been an excellent option if you're going to 6.8. Staying in 5.56, there's no reason to go anything other than an M4. I don't think there's anything that's going to offer you a significant benefit over the M4. But if if you were looking to replace calibers, that would have been an excellent option.
What causes wear marks to the buffer face?
Mostly what happens with the buffer face is when you close the receiver, the back of the bolt should be pushing inward on the buffer. It pushes it in far enough so the face of the buffer does not engage the buffer retainer pin. Now, if that is made improperly or the location of that retainer pin is set back too far, every time the buffer goes back and forth, it's going to smack into the buffer retainer pin. That's going to put that chattering all the way around it. So generally, if your buffer's out of spec, that will cause it. Sometimes it's just you may have a burr in the back of the bolt carrier, which may be some of the finish, but the actual damage, the ticks that come to it, generally comes from an out of spec lower receiver.
Do you know anything about the Canadian pattern A1 carry handles? Did they ever issue them, or were they more of an export feature?
Canadians, the original C7 A1s, most all of the detachable carrying handles were all A1 carrying handles. They very, very seldom ever messed around with with our bullshit M4 ones. They did not believe in the practicality of the A2 rear sight system, the full adjustment and all that stuff. They were far ahead of their game. They made a much better decision than we did because the A2 rear sight, in my opinion, was not useful to the average soldier. Most of the time when I saw the Canadian ones that were the A2, they were around like the LMGs. But I think overseas and seeing pictures and doing all the research I have, I don't really ever recall seeing the A2 one on a standard rifle. I've never seen one. I've seen it on one that was actually in service.
Mike says he's absolutely loving his copy of America's Rifle. Thank you,
Awesome.
Mike. I'm glad. I've heard really good things about the quality of the redo.
It was much better than the original.
Yeah. We should probably talk about the stuff that we've been filming.
Oh boy, we've done some cool stuff.
Some really good stuff. I shared a photo a couple days ago about how he is finally doing a video on the M16 versus the AK, and y'all are very interested in that.
Oh yeah, we did another really cool one today. It was on my personal Colt collection.
That was fun getting all those out, and yeah.
Another cool one we did was a video on the Cold War rifles, on the 7.62 NATO rifles. Did one on the Estonia contract LMT rifle. Actually, there were so many. I'm trying to remember what they all were now. Today, we're going to be doing one on the Bullpup showdown between the Tavor TAR-21 and the Hellion. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. We filmed like 6-7 videos.
8, actually. 8. We also did the crime series on Glock.
Yeah, crime series on Glock was one. Jeez, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank right now. I swear, when I fell and I broke my back, my head hit the ground, it bounced. Some of the wiring got loose on short-term memory. But we have some really cool ones that are out right now. They're going to be coming out.
Yeah, I will be doing a lot of editing. Why was the XM1777 Commando so reliable? The XM16 E2 was not.
The XM177 E1, E2 were basically the same, just the differences in barrel lengths. I don't believe one of them was ever any more reliable than the other. Back in those days, you had a higher rate of fire, which of course the carbine system, it wore quicker, and it was rougher on the system than the original 20-inch barrels were. But any of those original rifles that were using the carbine link gas system, I don't believe any of them were more or less than any other ones. They were same barrels, just one maybe a little bit shorter than the other, but that's about it.
I noticed my 2013 LE 6920 carbine has a sideways C on the carrier instead of the normal way. Is there any reason that is so?
Yeah, that basically would tell you that it was not a U.S. government carrier. Colt would do that on occasion. They would put, for instance, a parentheses around the C. They would do something different to let you know, to let them know what that part was. And that would be an indication that that was not a U.S. government part. Um, Colt got a lot of shit earlier on when they stopped making their own parts and they were putting in subcontractor parts without the C on there. People had complained about the C not being on it, and all of a sudden you saw them coming on with scribes and things like that. So Colt was starting to put some of those marks back on them. But anytime you would see something like that, that would indicate something out of the ordinary. That could also be an indicator of a subcontractor. In that case, it could also mean that it was just also they knew that it was this subcontractor that did that. So we put it sideways, put it upside down, whatever. That could be an indicator as well. But Colt has a way of making sure that they know where these parts come from.
Have you seen the KAK Industry sand cutter AR-15 BCG, which also has double ejectors and downward vents? With the double ejectors, be better for short overgas barrels.
I have definitely seen the new Knights Armament Company.
Just wait a second. Sorry, guys. As Chris likes to call them, the assault terriers. The kids' DoorDash food has just arrived, and yeah.
It's certainly an interesting bolt. It's got a lot going on. Is all the stuff necessary? No. The problem with mice is they do some good work, but everything they do is heavily proprietary. If something goes wrong, good luck with the customer service and good luck getting spare parts out of them. That's the biggest problem with a lot of that stuff. The dual ejectors is a good idea, especially for short barrels where you're having a higher rate of fire. It enables you to get the cartridge case out of there quicker. Putting more of a center, for the leverage on the extractor, decent is a necessary no. It's got some neat things on it, but are they necessary in a properly made rifle? Probably not. Is it worth the money? No way in hell. Again, getting the spare parts is just way out. You're far better looking at something like an H&M, and I still also tell you to this day that the LMT enhanced bolt is probably the best one that's out there. It's the most practical one that's out there.
Richard says, I've missed a handful of the live streams. Did you get those DeWoo receiver screws?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. In fact, I still got to pull the rifle out to put them out. Thank you so much.
Am I correct in assuming you prefer a more traditional taper pin front sight over the more modern low profile set screw style? If so, what makes the taper pin front sight more desirable?
Well, you have taper pins and you have regular roll pins. I mean, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Anytime you drill and pin, regardless of whether they're taper or standard pins, it is a far cry. It is incredibly much more reliable and durable than any screw or any set screw or anything along those lines. A combat rifle has to have a drilled and pin gas block, or you at least at the very least you have to have a dog nose cut into the barrel where that screw can go into that barrel, so it'll prevent that thing from moving forward. To me, for a commercial rifle, who gives a shit? If it fails on the range, it doesn't make a difference. But for a real world gun, drilling and pinning is a mil spec. You will never see a military rifle, a combat rifle, that any military accepts that that's not drill and pin because it is a reliability issue. That's just the way that it is. I got to ever see overseas an actual combat rifle that's held on by set screws. This is more of a commercial thing than it is. It's not a military type thing.
I would love to see you do videos sourcing correct parts for clone builds.
I have in the past done some on clones where I talked about where the parts come from. At this point right now, since COVID and since all this stuff, a lot of the companies who manufactured those parts are not making them. They were making so much money making standard M4 parts, they couldn't justify taking the time out to make these smaller run parts. That's why, like at Brownells, you haven't seen any of their retro parts in for quite some time. They can't get the forgings. If they can't get the forgings, no one's going to spend the time to change out those machines to make a few of these retros when they can make thousands of the standard M4s. That's really the problem, is making these things in smaller runs and being able to get the time when larger companies are buying in such bulk. That's really where the hard part is, finding the retro stuff right now.
I bought a used 5.56 Armalite mid-length 16-inch with an A2 rifle stock extension and buffer. Notice the buffer pad is squashed a little. In this from the high round count, or is it from being overgassed?
Generally, that's a sign of it being overgassed. Absolutely. If you're seeing the rear buffer rear of the bumper, the bumper being crushed, that's definitely telling you that it's the wrong buffer for that gun. You need something that's heavier in there.
Any thoughts on clamp-on versus set screw gas block?
Already got that one.
Are the Vestava AK-47s any good in your opinion?
Oh, I think they're the best ones that are available out right now. There's a video that went out. It was definitely over the last year, I think it was, where I did a review on both the MPAP and ZPAP. And basically, I feel that the Vestavas are the finest imported ones you can get right now. But there's a whole video on that. Just it's within the last year. There's close to 600 videos there. It's hard to remember exactly when each one was done.
Pistols like the S&W EZ and Walther PDP-F uses a reduced spring tension slide, making it easier to rack. What trade-off do these pistols make in order to make them more friendly in reliability?
Well, unfortunately, if you lighten the springs, you're lightening up your stress on the spring, which means you're giving less resistance to the sliding back, and less on return as well. So your spring's not going to last you as long, and your gun's going to take a little bit more of a beating by using lighter springs. You can get away with a little bit lighter springs with a gun that has a locking system, but with anything that was like a blowback, you have to have those heavier springs. But there are trade-offs. Quite frankly, I'd rather have a slide that's a little more heavy to operate than to have the reliability and have the durability of the gun not sacrificed.
Any thoughts on M&P 40C?
I'm not an M&P fan. There's a lot of other guns out there that are better options. I'm not a Smith & Wesson fan, not anything other than revolvers.
Did Israel ever field an accurized foul? I've heard of accurized M14s, but nothing about their fouls.
Not that I'm aware of. Again, I don't know a lot. My time where I've been overseas, seeing what the Israelis have. Anytime you would see fouls, it would be a standard foul. There would be nothing special about it. They had other types of bolt-action sniper rifles and such. I've never seen it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I don't know everything. I can tell you from what I've seen, I've never seen any kind of accurized foul.
You don't know everything?
Absolutely not.
He does.
And these guys love telling me. A lot of guys love telling me when I make a mistake too.
Well, I'll tell you this: when we filmed the M16 versus the AK, that's what some of you guys have heard me before. It's what I call filming magic. It's like literally like even I'm hypnotized by him talking because he just knows it and it just spews forth in this like really eloquently, said, put together, thought through, and it just flows. And so it's going to be, I think it was 40 minutes, I want to say, but it literally, it'll be edited to probably keep the bulk of it because it's, there's no stumbling, it's just very fluid.
Lots of pictures are going to be in there.
Yeah, you already let me know. Lots of pictures are going to be in there, but it was, you guys are going to love it. I can't wait to get that one done, and I'll probably release it to our Patreon people first, just as a thank you to them. But I'm excited for all of y'all to see because it's really good.
Yeah, there's some good ones. I definitely have my areas of expertise. Like that. Some of the stuff I don't know as well. It's funny because I generally defer over to William over Michiko. Generally, if I don't know something, he does. So he's always been my go-to guy.
Yeah, I'm sure you are to him as well. What are your thoughts on Hodge Defense, specifically barrels?
Hodge Defense is a company that I've actually talked to Mr. Hodge there. There was a time where I was going to go visit him in San Antonio. Never came to fruition. I know he had some family issues he was dealing with. So it's not something we ever got a chance to actually do. From what I am aware, he makes some pretty incredible things. One of the guys who did an interview with me was the Arab Bill Junkie. And he thought the absolute world of Hodges because those guns are unicorns. There's very few of them that are out there that are complete guns. I tried getting my hands on one. He says, well, if you come out here, you will build one. But I just never had the opportunity to do it. So I've heard really good things, but I'm not going to give anything an endorsement without having it in my hands.
What do you like? What do you like to get at Bucky's?
Nothing anymore, because between being diabetic and things like that, everything at Bucky's is all sugar. I do love to get the jerky there, But that's about it. Everything else is just all sugar: the candy, the soda, the food.
Yeah,
Trying
you're
to
no
find
fun.
something that's just that's
The
diabetic
best
friendly.
thing to
There.
get at Bucky's is the beaver nuggets.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. But that's also not why you're not a legit real Texan.
Look at the sugar and the carbs in those. That's why I don't eat them.
A follow-up question. Did Knight's armament patent on the sand cuts expire, or is it just coincidence that Centurion Arms and KAK Industries came out with sand cutter BCGs recently?
You can't patent that sand cuts. That's been on the Falbo carriers forever. So there's no way that you can patent that. Actually, I asked Monty about that. Because there was a similarity. And he wasn't aware of the Knights. So I think he was sort of surprised to see that there was a similarity.
What is your thoughts on Surefire War Comp?
They were LMT obviously used them on their stone and on their New Zealand contract rifles. They certainly do well. The reality is you have to use a Surefire. It's for using a Surefire suppressor. I don't have Surefire suppressor, so I never took advantage of that aspect of it. Shooting the rifles with that on it, it certainly is a good flash suppressor.
Any experience with Psionics AR-15s?
I just got over the last probably couple of months. Some people have asked me about those. I've done some research into them, but I haven't been able to get my hands on one yet.
Well, we got through all of the questions tonight. This is going to be a short and sweet one, but thank you guys for joining us. We got through all of them.
Wow.
I know.
Nothing else? Nobody else out there?
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you guys very much.
We appreciate you.
Take care.